hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game.
Hello everyone, I'm Heff and I. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Morning Manager.
And I'm Seb, and this week we are going to be talking trades, but not really any specific kind of trade.
That's right, we're going to be looking at what kind of player the Leafs need and what we're likely to have to give up to get said player.
Yeah, no specific names because there's a lot of trade rumors, and we've got an idea for a show we're going to be doing next week to cover that, but we're just going to take a quick peek around and say what area the Leafs need to address the most, what kind of player fills that need, and who they're likely going to have to give up, whether it's roster players, minor league players, or draft picks in order to get them.
Right, so let's just get right to it. Seth, what do the Leafs need?
Well, in a complete reversal of the Matt Sundin days, they need a center. Badly. I mean, Tim Connolly and Tyler Bozak, they've been filling in adequately, but let's face it, we could get a lot more out of our top line if they had the right type of center. And they're hard to get. So if Toronto wants to get that type of center, and it doesn't have to be, a playmaking center, it just has to be a scoring center. Anything, any kind of player that can win faceoffs, distribute the puck, and score on their own. Now these, of course, are not exactly easy to come by, so the asking price is going to be pretty steep. We're looking at first-round draft pick, that's automatic. A top prospect is another automatic. A name like a Nazem Kadri or a Keith Aulley is definitely going to be involved in that. A roster player is also going to have to be a given, and it is not going to be a lower-end roster player. If Toronto wants to get a center to play with Lupul and Kessel, then one of the following three players will not be a Maple Leaf after that trade is made. Clark MacArthur, Mikhail Grabovski, or Luke Shen. One of those three will be involved in a deal that lands Toronto a top-line center.
So you'd rather have a sniping center than a playmaking center?
I think any type of scoring center would be desirable. Because honestly, Lupul and Kessel have each showed they have the ability to distribute the puck as well. I think whoever they can get who can simply put up points is going to be a huge addition to that line.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Seb, I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with you. Because what I think the Leafs have is, like you said, Tyler Bozak and Tim Connolly have been doing an adequate job in that center position. Hey, not ideal, but what the Leafs need to make the playoffs more than anything is size. Aside from Dion Phaneuf, Colby Armstrong, and Mike Brown, who do the Leafs have to punish the opposition? And hey, Colby Armstrong's only played 10 games this season. What the Leafs need to do is they need to go out and get someone like a Cal Clutterbuck. A guy with size who can also score a goal once in a while. But what they need to give up, I'm pretty much agreeing with you, a high-end defenseman, probably a scoring forward, and a guy like Nazem Kadri, Joe Colborne, and Matt Fratton.
Well, that's a good one. I don't see any particular problem with that. Okay, now, kind of turning things over a bit, we're now going to look at what Toronto shouldn't do approaching the trade deadline. And I think that we can be in agreement here is one thing that Toronto should not do is go for a winger. Unless they're getting one who is locked up to a long-term contract and is a good, proven, consistent scorer, the Leafs should stay out of that mix entirely because they have good wingers already that are under contract, reasonable contracts, and quite a few of them have openly stated that they want to stay in Toronto. So I don't think that the Leafs need to go blowing a roster player or a draft pick or a prospect or any combination thereof on another winger unless this is somebody who's absolutely dynamite that they're getting on the cheap.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people throw around names like Bobby Ryan. Now, yes, Bobby Ryan would be fantastic no matter what uniform he puts on. But think of who we'd have to give up for a Bobby Ryan. We'd have to give up Lupul, Kessel, or Lupul, MacArthur, one of those guys. Basically, you're right. We have 3 amazing wingers right now. Kessel, Lupul, MacArthur. MacArthur we may have to give up to get some good quality in return. But if we can hold on to him, why would we?
Yeah, exactly. Unless there's an absolute steal of a trade out there, then they shouldn't move any of these guys. Now, I know that the contracts for guys like Kuhlman and Grabowski are coming up, but their contracts are extremely reasonable. Both of those players have stated they want to stay with the Leafs. Well, why, unless you're getting a Bobby Ryan for a ridiculously cheap trade, you shouldn't move any of these guys. And I think that Toronto would be shooting themselves in the foot if they attempted just to make a deal simply for the sake of making a deal.
As a side note, what is your take on Kuhlman? Is this just an off year for him, or is he going to bounce back?
I think he's going to bounce back. This has been a very frustrating year for him. As we've discussed in past episodes, he's not doing anything wrong. He's doing everything right. He's just not finding the back of the net. And just imagine how hard it must be for this guy to not be scoring and still be focused on playing a 200-foot game, which he has really become synonymous with. It's unbelievable just how focused he's managed to stay and not let any of that get to him. I think he's going to bounce back next year. I thought he was going to have another 30-goal season this year. I said so back in October. It didn't happen, but I honestly don't think that this is, the downward spiral for Nikolai Kuhlman. This is a bad year that he's having, but, as I stated, this is not like Jason Blake. He's not just trying to do one thing. He's doing everything well. The puck's just not going in for him.
I agree. I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but that is the epitome of snake pit. Like you said, he couldn't be doing anything better than he already is, except the puck's not going in for him. So, you know what? Yeah, I guess, you take some time off in the summer, go see a counselor, do something. But I agree with you. Hopefully you can get it back on track next year.
Yeah, MacArthur and Grabowski, they each had some swoons this season, but they seem to have found their rhythm, and hopefully, that opens up a little more space for Kuhlman, and he starts finding the net. All right, well, that wraps up this week's episode of Sunday Morning Manager. We have got a very special show lined up for next week. It's a little different with the trade deadline approaching. Heff and I decided to try something a little more fun, and I think you're going to like this one, folks. So until then, I'm Sev.
I'm Heffy Wiggle, and we'll see you next week.